Commander Hyansu led the final assault on the hegemony's home system, bringing justice to a species that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years. The battle wasn't just about human survival anymore. It was about ensuring that the galaxy would never again face the threat of systematic civilization harvesting. Dr. Cheung worked with the preserved knowledge of harvested species to rebuild what the hegemony had destroyed. Humanity didn't just defeat their enemies. They became guardians of galactic memory, ensuring that billions of destroyed cultures would be remembered and honored forever. Admiral Yuna stood on the bridge of her flagship as the last hegemony stronghold fell to human forces. The galaxy fell silent once again, but this time it was a different kind of silence. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of peace, protected by those strong enough to maintain it. The surviving hegemony forces, scattered across the galaxy, learned what every predator eventually learns. There's always something higher on the food chain. Humanity had revealed themselves as the apex predators of the galaxy, not through cruelty, but through absolute determination to protect innocent life from those who would harvest it. Lieutenant Minho, now promoted to captain after the war, established monitoring stations across former hegemony territory. Humanity's new mission was clear. They would maintain the peace they had fought so hard to achieve. The galaxy had its guardians now, and those guardians had learned their lessons well during 3,000 years of preparation. The Great Silence was over, replaced by something better, the Great Peace. Humanity had delivered destruction to those who brought war, and in doing so they had ensured that the galaxy would remain safe for any innocent species that might arise in the future. The Watchers had become protectors, and the galaxy was finally safe from those who would harvest its children. Fleet Admiral Neon commanded the largest human armada ever assembled, striking at the hegemony core worlds with weapons that turned alien planets into cosmic dust. The combined fleet included ships from dozens of liberated species, all working together under human leadership to tear apart an empire that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. Humanity had revealed their true nature to the galaxy. They were not explorers pretending to be warriors. They were warriors who had been pretending to be explorers for 3,000 years. Every human ship carried enough firepower to destroy cities. Every human soldier fought with the fury of their entire species backing them up. The human fleet moved through hegemony space like a storm of destruction. They did not conquer planets, they liberated them. They did not enslave populations, they freed them from millions of years of bondage. The aliens who had been forced to serve the hegemony welcomed human forces as saviors. Dr. Wu Jin had cracked the alien communication networks, allowing humanity to broadcast messages directly to every enslaved species in the hegemony empire. The message was simple and powerful. For the first time in millions of years, their oppressors were losing. The galaxy had found champions who could not be defeated. The broadcast caused chaos throughout the hegemony empire. Enslaved species began rebelling against their masters. Alien soldiers refused orders to fight against human forces. Entire sectors of the empire declared independence and asked for human protection. The hegemony was collapsing from within. Wu Jin's communication breakthrough also allowed humans to speak directly with the consciousness trapped inside alien machines. Billions of enslaved souls learned that rescue was coming. They began sabotaging hegemony systems from the inside, turning the empire's greatest strength against itself. General Yeji commanded the planetary assault forces that had developed new tactics specifically for liberating hegemony worlds. Humans did not just invade planets, they did it with a precision and efficiency that turned liberation into an art form. Every operation was planned to minimize casualties among the enslaved populations. Yeji's forces would strike at hegemony control centers while broadcasting surrender offers to alien troops who had been forced into service. Most of the enemy soldiers laid down their weapons as soon as they learned they could join the rebellion instead of dying for masters they hated. The speed of human advances shocked even the liberated aliens. They had expected the war to last for centuries based on their experience with previous rebellions. Instead, human forces were dismantling the hegemony empire faster than anyone thought possible. Human military doctrine was based on the concept of total war, but it was also based on the concept of total liberation. Every planet they conquered became a base for liberating more planets. Every freed slave became a soldier in the growing rebellion. Every victory made the next victory easier. The hegemony leadership attempted to negotiate with humanity, offering them territory, resources, and a place in the Galactic Empire. Admiral Eunice's response became legendary across the galaxy. Humanity was not interested in joining an empire built on the bones of harvested civilizations. The human response to the hegemony's offer was broadcast to every world in the empire. Humanity would accept nothing less than the complete dismantling of the harvesting system and the freedom of every enslaved consciousness. The hegemony could surrender unconditionally or be destroyed. There were no other options. The negotiation attempt revealed something important about the hegemony's psychology. They had grown so used to easy victories that they could not understand an enemy that would not compromise. Human demands were non-negotiable, and the aliens could not comprehend such absolute determination. Captain Donghyuk's intelligence division had mapped the locations of thousands of harvesting worlds, where the consciousness of destroyed civilizations was stored in massive computer networks. These facilities became priority targets for human liberation forces. The harvesting worlds were heavily defended, but they were also filled with enslaved minds that wanted to be free. Human assault teams worked with the imprisoned consciousness to identify weaknesses in the facility's defenses. The enslaved souls became guides for their own rescue. Each liberated harvesting world revealed new horrors about the scope of hegemony crimes. Some facilities contained the consciousness of entire species that had been extinct for millions of years. Their cultures, languages, and knowledge had been preserved as tools for the hegemony, but now they could be restored. Dr. Chae-young led teams of scientists working to rebuild the cultures and civilizations that had been destroyed by the hegemony. The preserved consciousness of dead species contained complete records of their history, art, science, and philosophy. All of it could be restored if humanity could free enough enslaved minds. The liberation of harvesting worlds became more than a military operation. It became a resurrection of galactic civilization. Humanity was not just defeating an empire, they were bringing back to life thousands of species that had been thought extinct. Forever Commander Hyeonsu led the assault on the hegemony home system, bringing the war to the heart of the empire that had terrorized the galaxy. The final battle was not just about human survival anymore. It was about ensuring that systematic genocide would never happen again. The hegemony home system was the most heavily defended location in the galaxy, but it was also filled with millions of enslaved aliens who had been waiting for liberation for countless generations. When human forces arrived, they found allies everywhere. The original hegemony species had grown, weak and complacent over millions of years of easy conquest. They had relied on their enslaved soldiers to do the actual fighting while they lived in luxury. Built from the harvested wealth of dead civilizations, human forces cut through the home systems defenses using tactics that combined traditional warfare with mass liberation. The enslaved populations rose up against their masters, while human ships attacked from space. It was revolution and invasion happening at the same time. The hegemony leadership tried to destroy their own harvesting facilities rather than let them be liberated, but the enslaved consciousness inside the machines fought back. The dead aliens used their knowledge of hegemony technology to prevent the destruction of their own prison systems. Lieutenant Minho commanded one of the boarding parties that captured the central hegemony command facility. The building contained the master controls for every harvesting operation in the galaxy. When humans took control of it, they gained the ability to free every enslaved mind simultaneously. The moment of galactic liberation was unlike anything in recorded history. Billions of consciousness trapped inside alien machines suddenly found themselves free for the first time in millions of years. The psychic scream of joy and relief was felt across the entire galaxy. Captain Saiwan led the forces that captured the last hegemony stronghold, ending the war that had lasted less than 2 years. Human victory had been so complete and so rapid that many liberated species could not believe it was really over. The speed of human victory revealed something important about the nature of galactic civilization. The hegemony had ruled through fear and oppression. Once, that fear was broken. Their empire collapsed like a house built on sand. Tyranny was always weaker than it appeared. Sergeant Hyunwoo fought in the final battle on the hegemony capital world, where he witnessed the end of the greatest evil the galaxy had ever known. The original hegemony species surrendered unconditionally, begging for mercy from the humans they had tried to exterminate. The war ended not with a great explosion or dramatic final battle, but with the quiet sound of liberation as billions of enslaved minds were finally set free. The galaxy fell silent again, but this time it was the silence of peace, not the silence of death. Admiral Yuna stood on the bridge of her flagship as reports came in from across the galaxy. The hegemony empire was completely destroyed. Their harvesting facilities were all liberated, and the enslaved species were free to rebuild their civilizations. Humanity had accomplished something unprecedented in galactic history. They had not just won a war, they had liberated an entire galaxy from millions of years of oppression. Every species that had been thought extinct was now alive again in digital form, ready to be restored to physical existence. The Great Silence was over, replaced by something humanity had never heard before: the sound of a galaxy celebrating its freedom from the greatest tyranny in cosmic history. Commander Tae-hyun led the first human fleet to take the fight directly to the alien armada, launching an attack that no previous civilization had ever attempted. Instead of defending their homeworld, humanity struck at the heart of the hegemony fleet while it was still approaching Earth. The aliens had never faced prey that decided to hunt their hunters. The human fleet was smaller than the alien armada, but it moved with a precision and purpose that shocked the hegemony commanders. Every human ship knew exactly where to go and what to do. They had practiced this exact battle scenario thousands of times in secret training exercises hidden from the rest of humanity. Taehyun's flagship led a formation of human dreadnoughts toward the largest alien vessel, a command ship the size of a small moon. The human ships looked tiny compared to the massive alien vessel, but they carried weapons that had been designed specifically to kill things much larger than themselves. The alien commander watched the approaching human fleet with confusion. No species in galactic history had ever attacked a hegemony armada directly. Other civilizations always tried to defend their homeworlds or negotiate for mercy. Humans were doing something completely unprecedented. They were going on the offensive. Dr. Somin continued her analysis of alien technology from her laboratory aboard Taehyun's flagship. Her breakthrough about the civilization engines had revealed something even more horrifying. The hegemony ships were not just powered by enslaved souls, they were controlled by them. Every alien vessel contained the trapped consciousness of entire dead civilizations. The dead aliens inside the machines were being forced to operate the very weapons that had destroyed their own species. The hegemony had turned genocide into the ultimate form of slavery. They made their victims participate in their own destruction and then forced them to help destroy other species. This discovery gave Dr. Somin an idea that changed the entire war. Instead of just fighting the hegemony, humans could try to free the enslaved minds inside the alien machines. If they could break the civilization engines, they might be able to turn the aliens' greatest strength against them. Lieutenant Colonel Jinwoo had developed a new type of warfare that the galaxy had never seen before. He called it chaos tactics because it was based on the idea that unpredictability was the ultimate weapon. His forces made decisions that seemed random, but were actually part of a larger pattern. The alien computers could not analyze human tactics because human tactics were designed to be unanalyzable. Every human commander made independent decisions based on their own judgment, rather than following predetermined battle plans. This made human forces almost impossible to predict, or counter Jinwoo's pilots would attack the strongest alien ships while ignoring the weak ones. They would retreat when they were winning and advance when they were losing. They would waste ammunition on useless targets and then suddenly concentrate all their firepower on critical systems. The aliens could not understand any of it. The key to chaos tactics was that they required soldiers who could think creatively under pressure. Most species trained their military forces to follow orders and stick to proven strategies. Humans trained their soldiers to improvise, adapt, and make up new tactics on the spot. Captain Boram commanded a strike force that penetrated deep into alien territory, discovering the horrifying truth about the hegemony's empire. They had been using the technology and knowledge of harvested species to grow stronger, but they had also grown lazy and overconfident. The hegemony had not faced real resistance in millions of years. They had grown used to easy victories against species that were unprepared for war. Their weapons were powerful, but they were designed for destroying defenseless targets, not for fighting against enemies who fought back with intelligence. And Fury Borum's reconnaissance revealed that the hegemony empire was actually much weaker than it appeared. Most of their territory consisted of empty worlds, where they had harvested everything useful, and left only ruins behind. Their actual population was small compared to the size of their empire. The aliens had built their entire civilization around the concept of easy conquest. They had never learned how to fight a real war against an enemy that could match their technology and exceed their determination. They were bullies who had never faced anyone strong enough to fight back. Major Seokjin's ground forces achieved something that shocked the entire galaxy. They successfully boarded, captured, and held a hegemony command ship. The aliens inside could not comprehend what was happening to them. No species had ever managed to capture one of their vessels before. The human boarding tactics were unlike anything the hegemony had encountered. Humans did not just try to kill the alien crew, they systematically captured key areas of the ship while keeping the aliens alive for interrogation. They wanted information more than they wanted revenge. Seokjin's soldiers moved through the alien ship like they had been designed for this exact mission. They cut through alien defenses using weapons and tactics that the enemy could not understand or counter. Human engineering had spent 3,000 years designing ways to board and capture alien vessels. The captured alien officers revealed information that changed humanity's understanding of the war. The hegemony was not actually a single species, but a collection of different alien races that had been conquered and enslaved by the original hegemony founders millions of years ago. Most of the aliens fighting against humanity were themselves victims of the hegemony system. They had been forced to serve as soldiers in the endless campaign of galactic conquest. Their own species had been harvested long ago and their consciousness had been trapped inside cloned bodies. This revelation split human leadership into two camps. Some wanted to destroy all hegemony forces regardless of whether they were willing participants. Others wanted to find a way to free the enslaved alien species and turn them against their masters. Admiral Yuna made the decision that would define the rest of the war. Humanity would fight to liberate the enslaved aliens as well as defend themselves. They would not just defeat the hegemony. They would free every consciousness that had been trapped by the harvesting process. The human fleet began broadcasting messages to hegemony ships offering freedom to any aliens who would surrender and join the fight against their masters. Some alien vessels defected immediately, revealing that they had been waiting for someone strong enough to lead a rebellion. Fleet Admiral Nyan took command of the largest human armada ever assembled, combining traditional human forces with defected alien vessels. The combined fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, ships from dozens of different species all working together under human leadership. The tide of war began to shift as more alien species joined the human cause. They brought knowledge of hegemony, weaknesses and tactics that had been hidden for millions of years. The enslaved aliens knew their masters better than the masters knew themselves. Human forces began striking at hegemony core worlds, using information provided by defected aliens. They hit supply depots, communication centers, and the massive facilities where harvested civilizations were processed and stored. Humanity was not just fighting a war, they were dismantling an empire. The hegemony leadership realized too late that they had awakened something beyond their ability to control or defeat humanity. Was not just another species to be harvested. They were the catalyst for a galactic revolution. Every enslaved species was looking to humanity for leadership in their fight for freedom. Captain Dongyuk led intelligence operations that mapped the entire hegemony empire using data provided by defected aliens. His teams identified thousands of harvesting worlds where the consciousness of dead civilizations was stored in vast computer networks waiting to be freed. The scope of the hegemony's crimes was beyond anything humanity had imagined. Billions of species had been destroyed over millions of years. Their knowledge, technology, and culture had all been stolen and used to make the hegemony stronger. while their souls were enslaved to power alien machines. Humanity faced a choice: they could focus on defending Earth and let the rest of the galaxy remain enslaved, or they could take on the massive task of freeing every imprisoned consciousness and rebuilding the civilizations that had been destroyed. The choice was never really in doubt. Humanity had spent 3,000 years preparing for war, but they had also spent that time learning about all the species that had been killed by the Great Silence. They felt responsible for avenging every dead civilization and freeing every enslaved soul. The war was no longer about human survival, it was about galactic liberation. General Minsu had spent 40 years of his life preparing for a war that everyone hoped would never come. Now, as alien ships burned human colonies across the solar system, he activated protocols that would transform humanity from peaceful explorers into the most dangerous force the galaxy had ever seen. The sleeping giant was waking up, and it was very, very angry. Hidden bases on every planet and moon came alive with activity. Weapons that had been stored for centuries powered up for the first time. Soldiers who had trained their entire lives for a war that might never happen suddenly found themselves fighting for the survival of their species. The just-in-case project was no longer theoretical. It was reality. Dr. Yunbi worked in her laboratory, while alien bombs fell around her research station. She was analyzing captured alien technology, trying to understand how the enemy weapons worked. What she discovered changed everything about how humans understood the war. The aliens were not just conquerors, they were harvesters. The hegemony had been farming civilizations across the galaxy for millions of years. They would find a promising species and let it grow advanced enough to develop useful technology. Then they would harvest everything valuable: the technology, the knowledge, the genetic material, and destroy everything else. It was like farming, but with entire civilizations. As crops, Dr. Yunbi's analysis showed that the hegemony ships contained technology from thousands of destroyed species. Each alien weapon was built using knowledge stolen from civilizations that no longer existed. The hegemony had grown powerful by stealing the achievements of others and using those achievements to destroy even more species. Captain Saiwan led the first successful human counterattack against an alien destroyer, using tactics that the enemy could not understand. Humans fought differently than any species the hegemony had encountered before. Other civilizations focused on defense or tried to negotiate for peace. Humans focused on finding the most efficient way to destroy their enemies. The human attack pattern made no sense to alien commanders. Humans would retreat when they should advance. They would attack when they should defend. They would split their forces when they should concentrate them. But somehow these crazy tactics worked. Human ships were smaller and weaker, but they won battles through pure unpredictability. Saiwan's squadron used a tactic called controlled chaos. Every human pilot acted independently, but they all worked toward the same goal. The alien computers could not predict what the humans would do next, because the humans themselves did not know until they did it. This randomness was actually a form of advanced strategy. The hegemony had conquered thousands of species, but they had never faced an enemy that embraced chaos as a weapon. Their battle computers were designed to analyze logical military patterns. Human tactics were not logical. They were creative and intuitive and completely impossible for alien minds to understand. Sergeant Hyunwoo continued fighting in the defense of Luna City, where he witnessed something that terrified the alien ground forces more than any human weapon. Humans did not just fight to win battles. They fought with a fury that came from somewhere deep in their souls. When humans saw their families threatened, they became something beyond rational soldiers. The alien troops had expected to face organized military resistance. Instead, they found themselves fighting an entire population that had gone insane with rage. Human children threw grenades from school windows. Human grandparents sniped alien soldiers from apartment buildings. Human shopkeepers turned their stores into bomb factories. Every human civilian was a trained warrior. But more than that, every human civilian was fighting for something the hegemony did not understand. The aliens fought for conquest and resources. Humans fought for their children, their homes, their right to exist. The difference made human soldiers 10 times more dangerous than any enemy. The hegemony had faced Admiral Yuna prepared to reveal humanity's greatest secret to the galaxy. For 3,000 years, humanity had been building something unprecedented. They had not just built weapons or defenses. They had built an entire civilization designed around the concept of total war. Every aspect of human society was secretly military. Human schools taught mathematics, but they also taught ballistics. Human farms grew food, but they also manufactured explosives. Human art included beautiful paintings and sculptures that could be quickly converted into weapons. Human music included songs that were actually coded military communications. The hegemony had studied human culture for decades, but they had completely missed the military aspects hidden inside everything humans did. Human children played games that were actually combat training. Human sports were actually military exercises. Human entertainment included movies and books that taught advanced military strategy. Every human settlement looked peaceful from the outside, but inside they were fortresses. Every human ship appeared to be designed for exploration, but they all carried enough firepower to level cities. Every human civilian seemed harmless, but they all knew how to fight like professional soldiers. Lieutenant Colonel Jinwoo pioneered new combat tactics that used humanity's greatest advantage, their ability to think in ways that other species could not understand. While alien computers followed logical patterns of warfare, humans embraced controlled madness. They made decisions that seemed stupid, but actually were brilliant. Jinwoo's tactics confused alien commanders who had conquered 1,000 worlds. His forces would attack the strongest enemy positions while avoiding the weak ones. They would retreat when they were winning and advance when they were losing. They would sacrifice important objectives to capture useless ones that suddenly became vital. The key to human tactics was that they were designed by a species that had spent 3,000 years studying how every other civilization in the galaxy had been destroyed. Humans learned from the mistakes of dead aliens. They developed strategies specifically designed to confuse and defeat enemies who had perfected the art of conquest. Somin made a breakthrough in alien technology analysis that revealed the true horror of what humanity was fighting. The hegemony ships were powered by something called civilization engines. These devices converted the memories, thoughts, and dreams of destroyed species into pure energy. Every alien weapon was literally powered by the souls of billions of dead aliens. The hegemony had not just killed other species, they had trapped their consciousness inside machines and used that trapped awareness as fuel. This discovery did not make humans retreat in horror. It made them fight with righteous fury. The revelation that their enemies were powered by enslaved souls turned the war from a battle for survival into a crusade for justice. Humans were not just fighting to save themselves, they were fighting to free the billions of enslaved minds trapped inside alien machines. Major Seokjin led ground forces that achieved something no other species had managed in millions of years. They successfully boarded and captured a hegemony command ship. The aliens inside could not comprehend what they were facing. Humans did not just kill their enemies, they studied them, learned from them, and used that knowledge to become even more dangerous. The captured alien officers were interrogated by human specialists who had spent decades learning alien psychology. The aliens revealed information they never intended to share, because human interrogators understood alien minds better than the aliens understood themselves. This was the result of 3,000 years of studying dead alien civilizations. Humanity had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The species that had spent 3 millennia hiding in silence had revealed themselves as the ultimate predators. They were not just another civilization. To be harvested, they were the harvester's greatest nightmare come to life. The alien fleet did not come in peace. Commander Sunho watched from the bridge of his battlecruiser as the massive dark ships opened fire on Mars' colony without any warning or message. The purple beams of light struck the colony, and it simply vanished. 50,000 people died in less than a second, and the aliens had not even tried to talk first. Sunho had been a soldier for 30 years. He had trained for this moment his entire life. But seeing it happen made his blood run cold. The aliens were not here to make friends or trade resources or share knowledge. They came to kill, and they were very good at it. Their weapons turned the Mars colony into glowing gas, in the blink of an eye. Captain Hana commanded the evacuation ships at Titan Station. When the alien weapons turned toward Saturn, she had 10 minutes to get as many people off the station as possible before the purple death beams reached them. Her crews worked faster than they ever had before, loading civilians into escape pods and transport ships. The station shook and groaned as alien weapons hit the outer sections. Hannah ran through corridors that were filling with smoke and fire. She helped families climb into escape pods. She carried injured people to medical ships. She stayed until the very last moment, making sure everyone who could be saved was saved. When Titan Station finally exploded behind her ship, Hannah had managed to rescue 300 people, but she watched 3,000 others die as their home became a ball of fire in space. The aliens had given them no choice, no chance to surrender, no opportunity to negotiate. They just killed everything human they could find on Earth. Dr. Jiho worked in his secret laboratory, analyzing pieces of destroyed human ships that had been hit by alien weapons. What he found made him more afraid than the attacks themselves. The alien weapons were not random. They were designed specifically to kill humans. The energy patterns targeted human DNA, the metal compositions were chosen to destroy human technology. The aliens had been studying humanity for a very long time. They knew exactly how human bodies worked. They knew what materials humans used to build their ships. They knew human weaknesses, and they had built weapons to exploit every single one. The attack was not random violence, it was calculated extermination. Dr. Jiho realized that this was not first contact. This was the end of a very long preparation period. The aliens had been watching humans for decades, maybe centuries. They had studied human biology, human technology, human culture, and human psychology. They had planned this attack down to the smallest detail. Admiral Yuna received Dr. Jiho's report, while alien ships burned human colonies across the solar system. She had spent her whole career preparing for this day, but seeing it actually happen felt like a nightmare coming true. She activated protocols that had been written 3,000 years ago and never used. Secret bases hidden under mountains came online. Nuclear weapons that could crack planets, powered up energy shields that could deflect starfire activated. Humanity had spent 3 millennia building the most powerful military force in the galaxy, and now they were going to use it. The aliens called themselves the Hegemony according to intercepted communications. They had ruled the galaxy for millions of years, destroying any species that might challenge their power. They were the answer to the Great Silence. They were the reason all those alien civilizations had disappeared. Lieutenant Doyen worked in the communications center, translating alien messages that his equipment intercepted. The Hegemony broadcasts told a story that made his skin crawl. They had destroyed thousands of species over millions of years. They had perfected the art of extermination, and they were proud of it. The Hegemony had a system. They would find a promising young species and watch them develop. They would study the species' weaknesses and learn their technology. They would wait until the species was advanced enough to be useful. Then they would harvest everything valuable and destroy the rest. Humanity had been marked for death the moment they invented radio. The Hegemony had been listening to human broadcasts for over a century. They had sent spy probes to study human cities. They had analyzed human DNA from samples collected by hidden surveillance devices. They knew everything about humanity, except one crucial detail. The Hegemony did not understand that humanity had been preparing for them. Every dead alien world that humans discovered had been a lesson. Every empty city had been a warning. Every silent planet had taught humanity what happened to species that were not ready for war. Captain Borum led a squadron of human fighters against an alien destroyer ship. She had trained for this battle her entire life. But the reality was more terrible than any simulation. The alien ship was massive and covered with weapons, but it moved slowly, like it was not expecting resistance. Human fighters were small and fast. They darted around the alien ship like angry bees attacking a bear. The alien weapons were powerful, but they were designed to destroy planets and space stations, not tiny, fast-moving targets. The human pilots used their speed and size to get close and strike at weak points. Borum watched her pilots work with deadly precision. They had trained for this exact scenario thousands of times in simulators. They knew where alien ships were vulnerable, and they knew how to exploit those weaknesses. The alien destroyer began to leak atmosphere and spin out of control, but for every human victory there were human losses. The aliens had more ships, more weapons, and more firepower. They were winning the war through sheer overwhelming force. Even when humans destroyed alien ships, there were always more ships coming. The hegemony had made one mistake in their analysis of humanity. They assumed that 3,000 years of silence meant 3,000 years of weakness. They did not understand that humans had used that time to prepare for war. They did not know that every human civilian was also a trained soldier. Sergeant Hyunwoo fought in the tunnels under Luna City when alien ground forces landed on the moon. He saw something that shocked even him. Human civilians, farmers, and teachers and shopkeepers were fighting like professional soldiers. They used weapons hidden in their homes and shelters built under their buildings. The alien ground troops had conquered 1,000 worlds, but they had never faced anything like human civilians defending their families. Human mothers fought like tigers. Human fathers fought like bears. Human children who looked helpless turned out to carry weapons and know how to use them. The hegemony forces began to realize they had made a terrible mistake. Humanity was not like the other species they had destroyed. Those species had been peaceful, explorers or artists or philosophers. Humanity was something new, something dangerous, something that had spent 3,000 years learning how to kill. Admiral Yuna sent a message to the hegemony fleet, using their own communication systems, her. Words were translated into every alien language and broadcast to every enemy ship. The message was simple and terrifying. For 3,000 years, humanity had been building something unprecedented, an entire civilization designed around the concept of total war. Every human was a soldier. Every human city was a fortress. Every human ship was a weapon. The aliens had not come to harvest a peaceful species. They had come to fight the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever produced. The great silence was over, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy what they had learned during those quiet years. Captain Deho stood at the large window of Space Station Alpha, watching the stars like his father and grandfather had done before him. The station was huge, bigger than most cities on Earth, and it floated in the darkness between Mars and Jupiter, like a metal island in an ocean of black space. He had been watching the stars for 20 years and they had never changed. They were always quiet, always empty, always the same. The great silence had lasted for 3,000 years. Ever since humans first built rockets and flew to other worlds, they found nothing but empty planets and dead cities. Every world they visited told the same sad story. Advanced aliens had lived there once, but they were all gone now. Their cities stood empty. Their machines were broken and nobody knew what happened to them. It was like someone had turned off a light switch across the entire galaxy. Dr. Moran worked in the research labs deep inside the station. She was the best scientist they had for studying dead alien worlds. Her job was to figure out what happened to all the missing aliens. She had visited hundreds of dead planets and found the same thing every time. No battles, no explosions, no signs of fighting. The aliens just disappeared one day, like they all decided to vanish at the exact same moment. The walls of her lab were covered with pictures and data from dead worlds. She had found alien toys that would never be played with again, alien books that would never be read, alien art that no alien eyes would ever see again. It made her sad, but it also made her scared. What could make entire civilizations disappear without leaving any clues behind? Meanwhile, on Earth far below the station, Admiral Yuna commanded the biggest secret in human history. Hidden under mountains and beneath the oceans, humans had built the most powerful weapons anyone could imagine. They had guns that could crack planets in half. They had shields that could stop the heat of stars. They had bombs that could turn moons into dust, but almost nobody knew about them. The weapons were part of something called the Just in Case Project. 3,000 years ago, when humans first found all those dead alien worlds, they made a simple decision. If something was powerful enough to kill entire alien civilizations, then humans needed to be ready to fight it. The project grew bigger every year. More weapons, more ships, more soldiers, all hidden from normal people who just wanted to live peaceful lives. Every human colony looked like a normal farming town or mining station, but underneath they were fortresses. Every human ship looked like it was built for exploring, but they all carried enough weapons to destroy cities. Every human child learned math and reading, but they also learned how to fight and how to use weapons. It was just part of growing up. Human young Lieutenant Kiwan was born on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. He had never seen Earth, but he knew it was there, somewhere behind him in the dark. His job was to maintain the sensor arrays that reached far out into space beyond Pluto. These sensors were humanity's eyes and ears, watching for anything that might come from the darkness between stars. Kiwan was 25 years old, and he had spent his whole life in the silence. He grew up knowing that humans were alone in the galaxy, but that they must always be ready for trouble. His teachers taught him that silence was good, but preparation was better. He learned to fix sensors and read space signals, but he also learned to shoot weapons and fight in zero gravity. The sensor station where Kiwan worked was small and lonely. It floated in the dark beyond the last planet with only 5 people to keep it running. They took turns, watching the screens that showed empty space day after day, year after year. Nothing ever happened. Nothing ever changed. The sensors just kept watching the darkness and finding nothing. But Kiwan liked his job. He understood that someone had to watch, someone had to be ready. Someone had to stand guard while everyone else slept safely in their beds on Earth. He was proud to be one of the watchers, even if watching was boring most of the time. The other watchers were older than Kiwan. They had been doing this job for decades. Some of them remembered when their parents told stories about the old days before the Great Silence, when people still hoped to find living aliens out there somewhere, but hope had died slowly over the centuries. Now they just watched and waited and tried not to think about what they might be waiting for. 3,000 years of silence had changed humanity in ways that nobody really understood. They had become the most paranoid species in the galaxy, but also the most dangerous. They jumped at shadows, but they were ready to fight those shadows with weapons that could destroy solar systems. They whispered when they talked in space, but they screamed when they practiced. Every human knew the basic rule that governed their species. If something comes from the dark between stars, it probably wants to kill you. So be ready to kill it first, and kill it completely. This rule was taught in schools, written in books, and programmed into every computer. It was the most important lesson humanity had learned from 3,000 years of finding dead alien worlds. The silence had made humans very good at hiding. They built their cities to look harmless. They designed their ships to appear peaceful. They trained their soldiers to act like scientists and engineers. But under the surface, they were all warriors waiting for a war that might never come. Then one quiet Tuesday morning, Lieutenant Kiwan's sensors detected something that changed everything. A massive fleet of ships appeared at the very edge of the solar system. They were huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built, and they moved with purpose toward Earth. The ships were darker than space itself, and they came in perfect formation like a military parade. Kiwan stared at his screens, trying to understand what he was seeing. After 3,000 years of empty silence, something was finally out there. The sensors showed hundreds of ships, each one the size of a city. They were coming from the direction of the Galactic core, and they were heading straight for Earth. His hands shook as he activated the emergency communication system that would send his discovery to every human outpost in the solar system. For the first time in 3,000 years, humanity was no longer alone. The Watchers had found something worth watching, and it was coming to visit them. The Great Silence was over,